Hey, welcome to another show of Fish Innovation. I'm really excited today. We have a new founder on the show today, amazing person that has been doing work for folks who are looking to see how do they get their ideas out there and created through different mobile apps, web apps, ways to really grow product and strategy. And she's been doing it for some time now. I want to introduce to the show Natalie Kaminski. Natalie, welcome
Hi,
to the show.
Ben. Hi, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, this is great. I know you've been crazy busy with everything going on and doing a lot of work for clients and seeing such success. As in this show, everybody talks about sort of their history of how they got to where they are. I'm interested in hearing, and so is everybody else. What was the path you took to get to jet rockets?
Yes, I'm happy to share that. So I sort of fell into the tech world back in 1998. I came to the US from Israel, where if I took one step backwards, I was born in Russia. I spent my early childhood in Ukraine, and my later childhood, I grew up in Israel. And when I graduated high school, I was, at this age of 18, an opportunity presented itself, and I moved to the US. I ended up in Minneapolis, Minnesota, of all places. That was a big shock to my system coming from sunny Israel to Minnesota in, I think it was sort of mid-October. So it was already snowing.
Yeah.
Big shock to the system. But it was also the year was 1998. And if it says anything to your listeners, especially those of us who are over the age of 40, you may recall this thing called Y2K, where the world was supposed to fall apart and we were supposed to, cease to exist. And I am happy to share that I was one of the people on the front lines saving the humanity because
Thank
my
you. Thank you so much.
you're very welcome. Yes, thank you. Thank you for acknowledging. But, my first job, I landed a job in a tech company helping to rewrite a database from using two-digit years to four-digit years. And in today's tech speak, it sounds very simple. You just create a new table, you write a quick migration script, and boom, things are done magically for you. But this it wasn't as simple back, 20 what it's 25 years ago, I guess, off my math a bit, right about that time. It took much longer, and that was my first introduction to the world of tech and IT and everything related to it. I subsequently spent 10 years, the following decade, working in the software development life cycle pretty much because I held jobs as developer, as QA analyst, as project manager, as a database architect, and at some point I had a fancy title of a webmaster in early 2000s when that became a thing. And so I kind of worked my way up, and my last corporate job was for a company located in New York City where I am based in today. And I was kind of, it was a small company. We were maybe 30, 35 people, onshore development team, servicing hedge funds and other financial services companies. And my job was to kind of run the operations, right? So I was the director of operations and later held the fancy title of COO. And that was my last kind of quote unquote job because when the company started to having troubles around 2008, just as the Lehman Brothers collapse, like the big recession and all that good stuff that happened to us, the company started going under, and I quit my job and I went on to freelancing, kind of figuring out what am I going to do with myself next. Honestly, there was never a plan to launch a business. I also wasn't opposed to that. I feel like this last job has given me a lot of insight into the business of software development. So naturally, one thing led to another, and one freelancing gig led to another freelancing gig, and ultimately, I had to hire a couple of people to help me with whatever I was doing at that time. And yeah, that's how Jet Rockets was born. And
That's,
it's 15 years later, here we are.
yeah, I mean, rocking it. It's or rocketing, I should say, right? That's awesome. I think it's really cool to see have that different side where you're able to get that exposure within corporate, understanding, kind of what works, what doesn't work, how to improve upon that. And then, yeah, I mean, 2008 recession, that's a very tough time. And you said, I'm going to start my own company, that's what I'm going to do. And it's amazing to see it be here for so long and helping others to be able to see that. Are there any stories while you were starting up? I know there's a lot of members in the audience that are really themselves trying to get going and started with their own business. What are some of the things that you saw, coming from the product background and getting exposure to all those different kinds of roles? How were you able to figure it out?
Yeah, so first I want to say that, in my opinion, any financial uncertainty, any market fluctuations are always a great opportunity to actually start your business, right? Like, because so many people are afraid, so many people are scared of taking the next step, and there's so much uncertainty, right? But at the same time, there's so much opportunity out there. And if you are, and I must add, I'm not the most, like, I'm a relatively risk averse person. I wouldn't say that I'm, a person who's willing to just, take any risk possible, but it felt like it was a good opportunity. But frankly, I also didn't have much choice, right? Because I needed to provide for myself. I definitely felt like I'm not quite ready yet to go and look for a job. It was a bad time to find a job too, because like nobody was hiring, right? People were letting other people go. So I was very driven financially at that time, and frankly still am. And to me, it was, okay, I got to figure out a way to make money. What can I do? What am I like? What am I best at, right? And at that time, I felt like being a product manager, kind of helping people figure out like how to build their products, is something I could do very, very well. And I reached out to my network. That's literally what I did. I sent, I don't know, hundreds of emails out to my network offering my services as a freelancer, and I said, look, I'm quit my job, I'm looking for my next gig, this is what I can do for you. And at some point I got a response. So it's really, there's no magic formula here. You just do what you can at a given moment. And yes, there has to be a certain element of luck there, of course, but I also, believe that luck comes to people who try. So like the more you try, the more you do things, the more things you put into motion, the more response you're going to get from the universe, right? Or
Yeah.
from life. And so that's what I did, right? I just started reaching out there, putting myself out there and saying, look, I can help who needs help. And ultimately I got a response. I got my first project. And then the next step, I guess, or the next part of my formula is the next opportunity presented itself when the client said to me, okay, I love what you did with helping us envision this product. Can you build it? And I couldn't. I did not have the skills at that point, nor, not the capacity to actually build the actual product. But my response was, yes, of course I can. So a little bit of embellishing and faking it till you're
Yeah.
making it type of a thing. But absolutely, I said, yes, of course I can. And my next step was to find the people who could help.
Yeah.
And so that was really the first project under the Jet Rockets umbrella, which Jet Rockets didn't exist just yet. At that time, it was me consulting under the name of Nika Consulting, and Nika is the name of my firstborn daughter. And believe me, my second daughter gives me a lot of grief over it because she always asks how come it's not named after her. One day I may start a company and name it after my second daughter, but not yet.
Yeah.
And so, you just kind of take a risk and you figure it out, really. And so initially, how we got going is I was introduced through someone I met at a networking event, again, by putting myself out there, right? I got introduced to Igor Alexandrov, who later became my co-founder and our CTO. And we met online. As a matter of fact, we never saw each other in person until, I want to say, 7 years into our professional relationship. So it took
Wow.
us 7 years to meet in person. Yes.
Okay.
But we did start working together, and we worked extremely well together. It was all via Skype at that time. So it was Igor and myself, and then later we hired another individual and then another person, and we were all doing this. It used to be called paired development, right? Where you just all working on the product at the same time. So I'd be kind of servicing the role of project manager and QA and like the customer liaison, and Igor would be coding, and then I'd be testing, and then another person would be coding, and then it was a lot of fun, right? And we really, in those first years of Jet Rockets, and I sometimes think, and I have this nostalgia almost over those times, because it was easy. It was us. We were making enough money to have enough income to feel comfortable. We weren't thinking a lot about, where's the next client going to come from, because it just felt so easy, right? And we were doing the work we really loved to do. And so that project led to, a successful launch of a product, which led to more referrals and then more clients. And then we started hiring people. And eventually at our peak in 2022, we were up to 82 people full time. Yeah. And I gotta say, that was not enjoyable because we grew so fast. From like 2021, 2023, we grew maybe by, I think we hired like 40 new people. And we did not have the infrastructure, I mean, the internal infrastructure, like kind of like we did not know what we were doing. And so we made every mistake in the book. Like every mistake we made, we learned from it, and kind of, thinking or looking at where we are today, we're once again on the pathway of growth because we're now at around 50 employees, but once again we started to grow, but we're doing it very differently this time. I've learned so many lessons from our initial attempt at growth, and at some point it felt like that growth was just for the sake of growth. It was very ego based. There was a lot of ego involved. It was like, oh my God, I want to get to 100 people. Isn't it cool to have a company of 100 people? The truth of the matter is, no, it's not cool. It's a lot more difficult to run a company of 100 people than to run a company of 20 people or 30 people. It's, a lot more challenging to deal with different personalities, less profitable too, I must say. So now we're once again on trajectory of growth, but we're doing it very differently this time.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think a lot of folks sort of go through that and get the growth factor, and they grow too fast because it's like, oh, great, we're moving, we need resources, we need to get through this, and totally understand. And that's why we do things. I think one of the newest, I shouldn't call it new, but a lot of motto that a lot of founders have been talking about are, how do I fail fast?
Oh, yeah.
AI for sure is a great way to help us fail fast because we learn from our mistakes. Talk to me a little bit about Jet Rockets, some of the stuff you're working on today. Where do you guys see yourself growing? Who's sort of your ideal client that you work with?
Yes. So today we work with three types of clients, right? So our clients fall into three main buckets. One is anyone or any enterprise level company that is running Ruby on Rails tech stack. So we have a lot of expertise in the Ruby on Rails tech stacks. We've been Ruby on Rails hardcore fans since day one. We stuck through the times where people were saying that Ruby is dead and it never died, and now it's experiencing an amazing renaissance over the past of the couple of years, and we're riding this wave. We love it. And so any company out there that's running a tech stack in Ruby on Rails, wanting to scale, to upgrade, wanting to take advantage of the amazing features that framework really offers developers, we're always happy to come in and consult and help and take the projects over. So that's one segment of our client. The second type of our clients are I refer to them as non-tech founders, right? Anyone who wants to launch a technical platform, a digital product, start a startup in the technology world, but doesn't necessarily have the technical background to do that themselves, even from day one, and doesn't have a technical co-founder like some people do, and they're looking for a reliable partner. And I want to emphasize the word partner as opposed to a vendor, because I often say that it's pretty easy to replace your vendor. It's almost impossible to replace your partner, and we strive to become the partner in this relationship. Why? Because, and how, right? How does it differ? First, we don't just tactically execute your vision. we actually strategically think about what are the goals of your business? How are you going to get there? Do you really need to build all these features you have in your mind today? Or can you break your project down into small chunks and kind of, break it down into MVP? And then like, what does post MVP look like? And do you need to go there until you reach certain traction numbers or not? So like, we really act as your like almost like fractional CTO, I would say, right? So not just a development vendor who is looking to do as many new features as possible because that's what's going to get me the biggest check, right? But rather building you a successful product. And so we have multiple examples of such successful relationship out there. One notorious company is called Safari Portal, is one of our long-term clients. We've been working with Rachel West, the founder of Safari, for 5 years now. Incredibly successful. We love her. We love what she does. She's one of those examples of companies that set out there not to become a unicorn, but to become a profitable, sustainable business that grows and delights their customers. And it's such a pleasure to be part of that journey. And then finally, the third bucket is, non-tech service businesses who are looking to bring digital transformation into their operation, right? And an example would be, let's say, a property real estate management firm or like a law firm that is looking to build some custom software solutions to automate their internal way of doing business that may differ from what's available out there with the tools that are available out there, right?
Yeah, so maybe I think today maybe talk about it like as agents. Folks might, building those probably too difficult. Non-technical person maybe to be able to. They know what they probably want, so it's easier to connect with you to help.
Yeah, well, I see that the AI revolution is definitely changing that part of the business quite a bit. And like today, I often say when I meet a client who's looking to automate internal processes, 2 years ago, I'd say, yeah, we can build you custom software for that. Today, I'm like, let's consider some AI capabilities because you may not need to build an entire software platform for this feature or for this particular workflow. Because yes, there are plenty of AI tools that allow you to build AI agents or just automate some workflows that will take away some of that daily operational pain.
Yeah. Are you seeing more and more AI integrated into your work? Like you just mentioned, like how are you leveraging AI today?
Yes. Yes. So the reason I'm laughing is because I read so much about how AI is going to replace all of, engineers out there. And my response to that is I'm just waiting. 2 years from now, probably I can charge obscene amounts of money to get rid of the technical debt that all these AI agents create. So I'm just waiting for my time. No, but in all seriousness, yes, absolutely. My team uses AI every day in their work, every single day. And here's how we use it. So my team, I think most of them prefer Copilot, which is embedded into the development environment that they use, the IDE. And they use Copilot, which, if you use it often and you teach it as you go, right? You give feedback to it just as you would with any other AI agent. It can really save you a lot of time for example, by building in tests into your code, right? So my top engineers tell me that they can save as much as 30% of their time, even today, by relying on AI to write some of those tests to make sure that whatever code they develop is being constantly tested and it's accurate, etc. So that's a huge time saver. 30% of time of an efficient engineer, that's quite a bit. That's a lot. Plus, engineers hate writing tests. So again, being able to outsource this, right, to this AI agent per se, that's fantastic. Here's the consideration though, and I hear this repeatedly especially from senior engineers who've been around for a long time, is that unless you yourself know what you're building and how you're building it, you can't rely on AI.
Yeah, agreed.
So the big risk right now is for junior programmers, like junior developers who want to become engineers as they progress in their career is not to overly rely on AI. Because if they do, they never learn. They can never progress. And that's why oftentimes you hear, I got this app up and running within 2 hours, but now I'm trying to add a feature to it and everything is fails and I've fixed this, but something else is broken. And how do I fix it? Help me. They don't know how to troubleshoot because they don't know what AI has done. They are not able to read through the code. They're not able to understand the logic. They're not able to think as a machine would think. And so at Jet Rockets, one of the ways that we expand our talent pool is through, we have this internship program where we hire, junior, like very junior people, and then we couple them with some of our more senior people as their mentors, and we allow them to kind of grow and learn through, hands-on work. So we discourage our junior members. We don't allow them to use AI, for instance, because we don't want them to become overly dependent on it.
Yeah.
Right? We want them to learn on their own. But once you actually graduate and once you know what you're doing, yeah, by all means, use AI, make yourself more efficient, for sure. But double check its work all the time, like you must. In interviews, for instance, when people come to us to interview and we give them an assignment, like a coding assignment, we say right away, we don't care if you use AI, but once you complete your assignment, we're going to have a one-on-one interview and you're going to explain to us exactly what you did and why.
Yeah.
So if you use the AI without any understanding of what was done, you won't be able to pass.
Agreed. I was having a conversation the other day with a technical founder who does somewhat similar, right? It's more live though. During the interview, and this person said they've caught so many of the junior developers using AI in the interview, just reading off the screen and copying, and then when the question comes, well, how did you get to that? I don't know. I mean, then
I told you.
Exactly. I mean, so it is really interesting. I mean, that is a concern, and you're absolutely right. I mean, AI is a tool that you need to learn how to leverage, and you're right, make yourself more efficient. Know what you're looking for. 100% agree. Engineers, they don't want to be doing testing in QA, right? That's why you end up hiring someone who does the QA and testing. There are really good people out there that do this, but if you're trying to run and get things done quicker, speed to market, it's hard. You have to sit down, you still have to communicate, you still have to have the back and forth, you still have to, well, the AI is going to be able to help do that and find those bugs, find those errors. Don't get me wrong, there will still be issues, right? I mean, but at least you'll be able to find them quicker, you'll be able to handle them, and then be able to think broadly from it. So
Yep,
it's
absolutely. I mean, I'll tell you, one of my most favorite applications of AI from my daily job is, and I don't know how much AI this is really as opposed to transcribing, right? Because
yeah,
it's not quite AI, but like those meeting assistants that follow you to your Zoom meetings, right?
yes,
That is such a lifesaver. I mean, I remember sitting in every meeting, jotting notes down, trying to remember, or like recording the meeting, going back, rewatching the meeting, making sure that I haven't missed anything. Now it's 2 clicks. I get the transcript. I upload my transcript into ChatGPT. I ask ChatGPT to give me the most important things. It's magical. It saves me so much time. I love it. Right?
100%. I always would do this in meetings. I'd always recap at the end. And now I'm more recapping for the AI note taker, not for the rest of the people.
Yep.
So that way when I do go back, just like you, into ChatGPT or another LLM and say, all right, let's pick out the action items. Who is going to grab what? Where can we go? What do we need to maybe meet upon more to discuss? But it also makes you become more of an active listener. I
Yes.
think, like you said, like I don't take notes anymore. I listen intently
Yeah.
and respond instead of maybe I miss something while I'm writing or I have to re-ask the question. So it should make meetings more efficient. I don't know if
Absolutely.
someone can study on it or not, but
And then I'll tell you, I also see a lot of benefit from kind of product definition phase. When we work with new clients, we put together sort of like a PRD, project requirement document, right? And then I love to drop it into ChatGPT and be like, analyze it, find what I've missed, suggest additional features. And it always has, well, not always, but often has some good ideas, right? And so it helps It helps tremendously. So again, I encourage everyone and anyone, like in my company and outside of my company, to learn how to use it, but also know and remember that you cannot rely on ChatGPT 100%.
No,
Or
yeah,
not just ChatGPT, any AI 100%. Like you have to know the subject matter in which you're asking for help, right?
exactly. Yeah, because when the AI gives you an answer, you're like, I don't know. I mean, I didn't think of that. It's something to consider, but I think the other things are strong. And it's always interesting because they do come across as like a yes man. When you say, "What do you think about this?" "Oh, I love that idea. You should do this, this, and this." Like, like, okay, sure.
So Ben, this sounds like a vendor, not a partner, remember?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, man. So, like, I mean, so speaking of AI and everything, I mean, where do you see a lot of this heading? I mean, we talk about the ETRDs and folks. Absolutely. I mean, they could go off and potentially maybe make their own products. Again, you shouldn't be using AI to do that. You should be understanding what you're doing. But where do you see in the next 2 5 years sort of the trends or changes that we might see in your space or product as a whole,
Yeah.
given what we're seeing now?
That's an excellent question. So first, I want to, and again, let's see how it ages in 2 years from now. But I think we'll still be in business of custom software development. I think we'll still be around, and we'll actually end up having more work than ever. What I'm seeing at the same time is that the quality of clients and quality of projects will become more challenging and more interesting because we used to service a lot of people at the stage of proof of concept, for instance, right? When people come to us when they don't have, like, they have an idea and they want to launch a quick proof of concept or a quick MVP just to see if this idea would take off or not. And typically those projects would be smaller, on a smaller scale, not as interesting or as exciting, right? And, we would do them and a lot of them would kind of die in the middle, right? Like we'll launch the proof of concept, the client will test it and against further development. And that's okay. But it's oftentimes resulted in kind of disappointment for the team, right? Because sometimes the team would get excited and like, oh, awesome, we're going to build a real system out of it. But ultimately, it wouldn't go anywhere. So what I see now is with the availability of AI or other low-code, no-code tools, I encourage all the founders to use those tools. They're very low cost and sometimes even free to go and launch your proof of concept using those tools, proving your concept, putting it out there, attracting alpha user, the initial set of users, gathering feedback. And only once you go through those kind of steps and once you're 100% sure or as close to 100% as you can ever be, sure that this is a successful endeavor, then you come to me. And then you come to us with a real budget, a real project plan, a real go-to-market strategy because you've already gone through the test phases. And this is where we start getting involved. And so our involvement is more meaningful and more long-term and more effective too.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think absolutely true where that definitely is heading. I know for myself, a lot of folks, I help with the prototyping to get to that go to market and discuss the strategy. And that feedback is so critical because we're always trying to solve problems and come up with the solutions to those problems. We don't know how many other people actually go through those problems and who have yet to realize the solution. And we also, as product managers, we do know that people do not sit up all night going, "Oh, I wish there was this, I have this problem. I wish there was this solution out there." Like, of course, I mean, they'll happen, right? They'll be like, "Oh, I'm waiting this line forever. Can't somebody figure this out?" Or, "Why is this, every time I buy this, it breaks," right? Of course, people have that, but the things when you meet with founders, it's not like there's 10 million people up at night thinking about this, but they haven't realized it yet that there is this beautiful, elegant solution that's going to drive down their costs, increase their revenues, and it's more about like once they see it, it's wow, I didn't even know about this. I didn't even know it was a problem. I guess you're right. Oh man. So it's good to get out there and do that. And now is the time to like you said, like everything you said earlier. Hey, we don't know what's going on with the economy, and maybe it's heading to a recession, maybe it's not, but regardless, it's good to say, look, I've got this opportunity. Maybe I do something on the side. I don't know where my job is, but at least I'm able to test out some of these concepts and ideas and do it quickly, and then come to Natalie to help scale when I know that it works.
There you go. That's That's the approach. But again, to that point, I mean, COVID, right? When COVID first hit, 50% of our clients went on pause within 2 days, and like the other 50% cut their budgets. And I was very much worried about our survival for about 2 weeks because,
Okay. All right.
because 2 weeks into COVID, or maybe a month, it doesn't matter,
Yeah.
all
Short
of them
time.
came back, and even more came back, and new clients came on, and it turned out to be a very profitable time for companies in tech space, right? So again, markets will do what markets do. People will adjust. We're definitely living in unprecedented times, you know. Uh, and so, but nevertheless, I mean, business continues and people continue to consume and people continue to sell and people continue to offer services, and none of that goes away anytime soon. So I encourage people to see this as an opportunity to just become better than those companies that end up going out of business, right? I mean, today is really like you can do a lot of things for so cheap from a tech standpoint, I mean, right? You can, I mean, it's so easy to start a company now. Like, you don't need anything. Like, just get your first client, and there you go.
Easier said than done. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's possible, right? I mean, people do it all the time. One advice, if I could give, if you're gonna go out there and start trying to promote yourself or become active on LinkedIn or any other social media channels, be authentic. Don't just rely on AI. I mean, it's so easy to see through. It's so easy to see when your post is written by ChatGPT. It's just easy. It's obvious. And so just be authentic. Just say what you want to say. You don't have to be super eloquent. It doesn't matter. Just be yourself.
You're 100% right. They've had a lot of different seminars, LinkedIn is saying the same thing. Just, it doesn't have to be pretty. It doesn't have to be inspiring. It just is, people want to hear how you're thinking about things. Maybe they're thinking the same thing and they just didn't write it down. And you're absolutely right, being authentic. It goes back to what you were saying before, which is reaching out to your existing network, kind of tying that back, right? Like, these are people who they have some relationship, whether it's on the surface or deeper, it's some nexus point that you guys met somehow. And so when you're reaching out to somebody, you can be more authentic. Why, you don't want to send a automated message to people. But then you're right, as you do get broader, like, narrow in on folks that you think you could help or do or have a conversation with. It's definitely, yeah, and even more so now, right? To be authentic is going to be rare with
Yes,
everybody
and
else.
and always think about what can you do for them before what they can do for you, right? And I know this is something that everyone says, but very few actually do, and execute. It's like, how can you help them before you ask for them to help you? Because remember, people love. I mean, most people love helping other people.
Hmm.
I can't tell you how many times I get emails, like cold emails from, well, not so cold, but like let's say warm emails, maybe through intro. Somebody just sends out an email saying, "Hey, would you talk to me? I'm starting out. I don't know what to do. Like, would you spare 30 minutes of your time?" And I'm always happy to do that because it makes me feel good, So you're giving me an opportunity to do something nice, right?
Yeah.
Which is incredible. And most people like to be useful. Most people like to be asked for help because it makes them feel good. So don't hesitate. Like, if you're like on the fence of, oh, should I reach out to so and so? Yeah, you should reach out, because the worst case scenario, you're just not going to hear back.
Yeah. Which you would have had anyway if you didn't write them. So
Exactly.
no change. Might as well see if you can control the change.
Exactly.
Speaking of education, helping folks, is there, with your massive product background and everything you've been through, I mean, is there something that you've seen today in today's process, or being able to help people get from proof of concept to scale, that founders might just not be thinking about? That you're something maybe you have every time you have a conversation with the client, it seems to crop up, and then how do you end up solving it, or what advice do you give them?
Yes, be super lean with your MVP. Most founders think, when they say, "Oh, I know what my MVP," and it stands for minimum viable product. Most people, when they talk about MVP, they actually don't talk about MVP. They talk about like version 5.0 of their product.
Yeah.
Be super mindful about differentiating between the features that will demonstrate value versus bells and whistles. On the one hand, your project, your MVP has to be interesting and intriguing enough to pique interest and to demonstrate potential value. And it's super hard to distinguish between those features versus the features that, nice to have but are completely unnecessary. And in your mind, give yourself very strict boundaries and say, I can only spend X amount of money and X amount of time on developing my MVP. And then have a partner, a development partner, who will honestly, with you, develop the scope of work that fits those boundaries and resist the temptation of adding one more feature.
Yeah.
Just one more feature. One more feature. I mean, you know how it goes. And it's hard because as founders, these products, these are like your babies. You want them to be perfect. You're thinking, if my product is not perfect, nobody's going to use it. But that is not the case. If you're able to demonstrate value, your product will be used even if it's ugly, even if it's not ideal in terms of UX, and even if it's not, if it doesn't perform very, very fast and like lightning speed. So, be brutally, be brutal in the way you're going to cut out features. So that's lesson number one. Yes.
100% agree on that. I mean, I think, yeah, minimum viable product. I think some people, you're right, they confuse the product features, and it's good to sort of draw a line and say, okay, if I didn't have this in here, would I still be able to get across the strategy? Would it still be? So then if I can, then it just becomes a want as opposed to a need. And then everything else will fall into place. And you're absolutely right. I think you're right. Especially with the new concept, it doesn't need to be the best thing ever. We look at maybe, I don't know, Apple, right, as an example. Back in 2007, if they were to release the iPhone 16, I mean, I think people would be like, okay, yeah, this is cool, but it would have been way too complex, I'm using my digital camera. Now I've got the same exact digital camera in it would be just too confusing. I'm not saying were they 20 years ahead of their time in technology, but you could see they probably knew where to go, but you just had something that was attached a phone to your iPod. That was the big thing. That was the MVP. That was all you needed, right? There's, of course, certain things need to work, right? You had to have a phone pad or a keypad in there where you could dial somebody. You had to connect to a cellular tower, right? Those are must-haves in your MVP, right? But you didn't need maybe emojis in the keyboard to do texting. It wasn't
Absolutely.
necessary.
Absolutely. And if I may, just lesson number 2.
Yeah.
You don't need to invest a lot of money into branding as the first step. You can always rebrand. You can rebrand once you have 10,000 users. Once people start paying you money, you can come out with this amazing new rebrand and pay, I don't know, dollars for your logo.
Yeah.
But until you actually have a product, I mean, Ben, I can't tell you how many people come to me and say, so I already have my brand and I just spent $50,000. I have an amazing name. I have a logo. I have my color scheme. And I'm like, how many users do you have? And they're like, oh no, I don't have a product yet.
Yeah. I mean, I guess, yeah, if you're an actor in Hollywood, sure, that would work really well.
Yeah.
Right? There you go. There, you are the product,
You are the
But
brand, exactly.
yeah, but oh yeah, I think I've read somewhere that's sort of like the wannapreneur mentality, right? I sit back and I always constantly try to tweak it to make it perfect, but I haven't yet actually made anything or at least I haven't made something that we know people want.
Yeah.
And so your point is get it out there. Could be
Yep.
the ugliest thing ever, but if it's adding value, just find out if it's going to add value.
Yep.
And then go from there. Then, like you said, you could make it, then that's where you can spend the time making it look pretty and updating it and staying ahead of competitors and all those pieces of scale.
Absolutely. Yep.
So I know we're running short on time, but is there anything else that you would add to the group from what you're doing, whether it's product, jet rockets, you name it, that we haven't talked about that you want to get out there?
I mean, I feel like There's definitely a lot of topics we can continue to discuss, and maybe we can do another round of these.
Yeah.
I invite you listeners to come and check out our website at jetrockets.com. You can take a look at our portfolio page just to see the type of projects we work with, and you'll see we work with a wide range of industries and wide variety of ideas. And some of our projects are very successful, and some are just super fun and interesting. I encourage you guys, if you have any questions, to reach out to me. Pretty easy to talk to. My name is Natalie Kaminski. You can find me at natalie@jetrockets.com, and follow me on LinkedIn as well, Natalie Kaminski. I try to put out some interesting, authentic content that is not written by ChatGPT.
Yeah, and we'll make sure to put that all in the comments and the show notes so that people can get an easy link to get out there. And I highly recommend folks to reach out to Natalie. Definitely in our day and age of product, really one of the top minds in how to think about helping you get there and scaling and really growing. And as she mentioned, 3 areas of expertise. If you fall into any one of those, definitely just reach out, even if it's just to ask her for help. Like she said, she's more than happy to do it. So with that, I thank you, Natalie, for coming on. It was such a pleasure, so inspiring, and get excited, to make new products.
Thank you, Ben. I really appreciate this opportunity. It was a wonderful conversation, and hope to talk to you soon.
Awesome. Everybody, I'm sure you enjoyed that. As I said again, make sure to reach out to Natalie with any questions, provide any comments. It'd be great to hear how you guys are thinking about your own innovation. And with that, keep on innovating. Bye.